I'm an Alaska wildlife officer. Something lives beneath the ice. The coffee in my thermos had gone cold almost 2 hours earlier, but I kept drinking it anyway. Not because I needed the caffeine, because stopping would have meant admitting I'd been sitting there too long. It was just before 11 p.m. on a February night, and I was parked by the southern shore of Lake Kusawa, engine idling, heater running, headlights cutting a narrow tunnel into the dark. The temperature gauge on my dashboard read -42 degrees Fahrenheit. At that temperature, sound behaves strangely. It doesn't travel the way it should. It feels like the air itself has frozen solid, trapping noise before it can reach you. I'd heard ice make noise before. Anyone who's worked up here has. What I heard that night wasn't that. My name is Tom Hadley. I'm a wildlife officer with the Alaska Department of Fish and Game, and at the time this happened, I'd been working the southern interior for just under 9 years. That includes winter patrols. Real winter. The kind where exposed skin develops frostbite in under a minute, and a simple mechanical failure can turn fatal faster than you can radio for help. Lake Kusawa sits roughly 40 miles northwest of the Canadian border. In summer, it's quiet. Beautiful, even. Clear water, long daylight, fishermen who know what they're doing. In winter, it becomes something else entirely. Ice fishermen, snowmobilers, people who want to test how much cold the human body can withstand before it starts making mistakes. My job is to patrol places like this, check licenses, make sure nobody's stranded, make sure small problems don't turn into recovery operations. Most nights, it's straightforward. That night wasn't. Dispatch had called me around 7:00 p.m. A man reported hearing something strange out on the ice. He didn't explain what. By the time dispatch tried to get more information, his phone signal dropped out completely. That's not unusual up here. You can have 2 bars 1 minute and nothing the next. Still, when someone calls from a frozen lake in February and says something feels wrong, you don't ignore it. People die every year because no one bothered to check. So I drove out. By the time I reached Kusawa, the sky was completely black. No moon. No aurora. Just stars and cold so intense it felt physical. The lake stretched out in front of me like a massive white plain. At least 8 inches of snow sat on top of the ice, undisturbed except for faint old tracks near the shoreline. My headlights illuminated the main camping area. 4 RVs, 2 heavy-duty winter tents. Lights were on in 2 of the RVs. That was normal. What wasn't normal was everything else. No snowmobiles parked outside. No fresh tracks. No smoke. No exhaust vapor rising from heater vents. In temperatures like this, you keep heat running constantly. You don't have a choice. I sat there longer than I should have, watching the scene, waiting for something to move. Nothing did. I grabbed my flashlight and radio, pulled my parka hood tight, and stepped out of the truck. The cold hit instantly. That first breath burned my lungs and made my eyes water, even through the face mask. The snow under my boots made that high-pitched squeak you only hear in extreme cold. I walked toward the nearest RV, sweeping my flashlight across the ground. There were footprints, but they were old, partially filled in with snow. At least a day, maybe 2. No fresh activity. I knocked on the door and identified myself. No answer. I tried the handle. Unlocked. That alone was enough to make my stomach tighten. Nobody leaves an RV unlocked in this kind of cold. Not unless they expect to be right back. Inside it was dim and cold. Not outside cold, but cold enough that I could see my breath. The heater was off. There were signs of recent life everywhere. An open bag of chips on the counter. A jacket hanging on a hook. A magazine laid open on the dinette table. Beds rumpled like someone had just been sitting on them. Everything looked normal, except there was no one there. The second RV was the same. Lights on. No people. The third RV was dark and completely frozen inside. Frost had formed on the interior windows. That one had been empty longer. The tents were worse. One had partially collapsed under snow load. Inside were sleeping bags, neatly arranged. Gear laid out like the occupants expected to come back. The second tent was still standing. Inside, I found a camp stove that had melted through the tent floor. The stove was stone cold now, but at some point, It had been running hot enough, and long enough to burn straight through synthetic material and scorch the ice underneath. That's the kind of mistake that kills people. But there was no body. No blood. No signs of panic. Just a burned hole in the floor and an empty tent. I radioed dispatch and reported what I was seeing. Sharon was on duty that night. I'd known her for years. Her voice stayed calm, professional. People leave camps, she said. Maybe they carpooled into town together. Maybe they planned to come back and got delayed. It was a reasonable explanation. It just didn't fit. I told her I was going to check the lake itself. She told me to be careful and keep my radio on. I got back in my truck and started driving slowly along the shoreline, sweeping my spotlight across the ice. That's when I saw it. A dark shape about 300 yards out, sitting alone on the frozen lake. I focused the spotlight. It was a snowmobile. Engine off. No exhaust vapor, just sitting there. I grabbed my gear and headed out on foot. Walking on a frozen lake at night messes with your head. The ice groans, pops, cracks like distant gunshots as it shifts under temperature changes. It's normal, but it never stops being unsettling. Every step feels like it might be the one that breaks through, even when you know the ice is over 2 feet thick. The snowmobile was a newer model, red and black, lightly dusted with snow. The key was still in the ignition. I tried to start it. Dead. Frozen solid. In the cargo box, I found fishing gear and a handheld GPS unit. The GPS wouldn't power on. Battery drained or electronics frozen. There were no tracks, no footprints leading away. No signs of a struggle. Just a snowmobile in the middle of a frozen lake with its rider gone. That's when the feeling shifted. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't hypothermia confusion. This was something else. I radioed Sharon again and updated her. She said the nearest trooper was over 3 hours away. I told her I'd keep looking, and then I heard it. It came from beneath the ice. A deep, resonant boom. Not loud exactly, but powerful. I felt it more than I heard it, vibrating through my boots and up into my chest. I froze. 5 seconds passed. Then another boom, deeper this time, and with it a sound like something dragging along the underside of the ice. Not scratching, dragging, slow, heavy. The ice under my feet was solid, 2 feet thick. Nothing living could be under there. The water was too cold, too deep. Anything trapped beneath the ice would have died within minutes. The sound moved from my right to directly beneath me, to my left. Each movement sent a physical vibration through the ice. Whatever was making that sound was big. I started backing toward shore. Flashlight pointed straight down at the snow-covered ice, watching for cracks that I knew wouldn't appear. The booming stopped. The dragging stopped. Everything went silent. And that silence was worse. I stood there longer than I should have, listening. No wind. No ice pops. No movement at all. Up here. Silence is never neutral. It's either a pause or a warning. I radioed dispatch again. Sharon, I said. I just heard movement under the ice. There was a delay before she answered. Not static. Not interference. A pause. Say again, she said. I repeated myself. Another pause. Then she said something that didn't sit right. Tom, are you alone out there? I looked around. The lake stretched empty in every direction, my headlights the only light source for miles. Yes, I said. Why? Another pause. Just confirm your location, she said. Don't move closer to the center of the lake. That wasn't procedure. Dispatch doesn't give tactical advice unless there's a reason. I asked her what was going on. She didn't answer. I started backing toward shore, slow and controlled. Every step deliberate, every movement measured. That's when I felt it again. Not a sound this time, a pressure change, like the air around me had thickened, pressing inward from all sides. Then the ice boomed again, harder. This time, it wasn't random. It followed me. Every step I took backward, the vibration matched my pace. Not chasing, not retreating, matching. I stopped. The vibration stopped. I took one step to the left. A beat later, the vibration shifted beneath me. I said nothing. Didn't breathe, didn't move. I knew then, without knowing how, that whatever was under the ice was aware of me, not reacting instinctively, not blindly moving, aware. My radio crackled. "Tom," Sharon said quietly, "you need to leave the lake. Now." I asked her why. She said, "Because this isn't the first call we've had like this." I made it back to shore and didn't stop until I was inside my truck. Doors locked, engine revving harder than necessary. The heater blasted hot air that stung my frozen face. My hands were shaking. I radioed again and asked Sharon what she meant. She hesitated. Then she said, "There are areas on Kasawa we don't investigate after dark." That was it. No explanation, no follow-up. Just a rule that didn't exist on paper. I asked her who made that call. She said it came from above. That's when I noticed something outside my headlights. A shape, standing near the snowmobile. At first I thought it was a trick of the light. Ice fog, snow glare. Then it moved. Not walking, gliding. It looked like a person, but not solid. Like someone had traced the outline of a human and erased everything else. No face, no clothing details. No clothing details, just a suggestion of form. It stood beside the snowmobile, unmoving. And then the ice boomed again, directly beneath it. The vibration rippled outward in a perfect circle. The figure turned, not its head. Its entire shape rotated smoothly, as if it didn't have joints, facing me. I felt a sudden, overwhelming certainty that if I stepped back onto the ice, I wouldn't come back. I put the truck in reverse and pulled away without breaking eye contact. The shape didn't follow. It didn't need to. The official report said environmental exposure, hypothermia, confusion, disorientation, poor decision-making. That's what the paperwork always says when there's no body. Over the next 3 weeks, 3 more snowmobiles were found on Lake Kuzawa, all abandoned, all intact, all with keys still in the ignition. No remains were ever recovered. No search was approved after sunset. When I asked why, I was told the lake was unstable. Then I was reassigned. No explanation, no warning, just a transfer notice and a reminder to keep internal matters internal. I went back to Kusawa once, in summer. The ice was gone. The lake calm and glassy, reflecting the sky like nothing had ever been wrong. I stood at the same shoreline. Same spot. I leaned forward and called out. "Hello?" My voice echoed once. Then came the reply. From beneath the water. Not distorted, not delayed. Perfect. It said my name. In my voice. I stepped back. "I don't patrol Kusawa anymore. They can fire me if they want. I'm never going back."